The silence of sorrow, the crystalline spires of Krenar Prime gleamed under the light of 3 suns, casting rainbow shadows across the imperial city. For 5,000 years, the Krinian Empire had stood as a beacon of civilization in the galaxy. Their technology was legendary. Their wisdom was unmatched. Their power was absolute, but today, none of that mattered. Today, the Empire held its breath as their young prince lay dying. Empress Zalara stood in the medical chamber, her tall frame casting a long shadow across the sterile white floor. Her silver skin, normally luminous with health, had dulled to a pale gray. Her forearms hung limp at her sides, 2 clasped together in a gesture of helpless prayer. Before her, suspended in a containment field that glowed soft blue, lay her son. Prince Theron was only 23 years old by Krinian standards, barely an adult. His body, once strong and vibrant, now looked fragile. Black veins spread across his silver skin like cracks in fine porcelain. His breathing came in shallow, labored gasps. The monitors surrounding him displayed failing vital signs in harsh red numbers that seemed to mock every prayer offered on his behalf. The void sickness had taken him 3 months ago. It started with fatigue, then came the darkening veins, the organ failure, the slow shutdown of every biological system. The finest physicians in the Empire had tried everything. Ancient remedies passed down through millennia. Cutting-edge treatments that pushed the boundaries of known science. Experimental procedures that risked everything for even the smallest chance of success. Nothing worked. The void sickness was a death sentence, and it had been for the 800 years since it first appeared. No one survived it. No one ever recovered. The disease took its victims slowly, cruelly, giving families time to hope before crushing that hope completely. Chief Physician Morvax approached the Empress with careful steps. His own skin bore the pale marks of age, his movements slow with the weight of centuries. He had served the royal family for 200 years. He had delivered Prince Theron into the world. Now he would witness the prince's departure from it. "Your Majesty," Morvax said softly, his voice carrying the gentle tone reserved for delivering unbearable news. "His neural functions are declining rapidly. We estimate he has perhaps 12 hours remaining. Perhaps less." Zalara's large eyes, triple-pupiled and capable of seeing spectrums of light invisible to most species, filled with tears that sparkled like liquid diamonds. 12 hours, she repeated, her voice barely a whisper. 12 hours to say goodbye to my only child. She reached out with one hand, pressing it against the containment field. The energy barrier prevented physical contact, a necessary precaution to prevent the disease from spreading. But she needed to be as close as possible. "Theron, my brave son, I am here. Your mother is here." The prince's eyes fluttered open. They were clouded with pain and exhaustion, but recognition flickered there. His lips moved, forming words that came out as barely audible sounds. "Mother, I'm sorry. I wanted to see the outer galaxies. I wanted to make you proud." Tears flowed freely down Zalara's face now. "You have always made me proud. From your first breath to this moment, you have been my greatest joy. You brought light to this empire. You brought hope to our people. You are everything I could have wished for in a son." High Chancellor Varix entered the chamber, his ceremonial robes sweeping behind him. He was younger than Morvax, but carried himself with the authority of his position. His forearms were crossed in a formal gesture of respect. Behind him came the Council of Advisors, 12 of the Empire's most important figures, all come to witness the passing of their prince. "Your Majesty," Varix said, bowing deeply, "the Empire grieves with you. We have declared 7 days of mourning. All celebrations have been cancelled. All disputes have been suspended. We stand united in our sorrow." Zalara nodded but did not turn away from her son. She had been empress for 3 centuries. She had faced wars, rebellions, natural disasters, political crises that would have destroyed lesser rulers. She had always been strong, always maintained her composure, always put the Empire's needs before her own emotions. But this was different. This was her child. This was the one thing in the universe she could not command, could not negotiate with, could not overcome through sheer force of will. "Has there been any word from the research stations?" she asked, a desperate edge creeping into her voice. "Any new developments? Any promising treatments?" Morvax shook his head sadly. "The teams have worked without rest, Your Majesty. They have analyzed the disease from every possible angle. The void sickness operates at a quantum level, disrupting cellular coherence in ways we cannot counter. It is as if the very fabric of biological existence simply unravels. We have no cure. We have never had a cure. The Empress closed her eyes. She had known the answer before asking, but hope was a stubborn thing. It persisted even when logic declared it futile. Then we wait, she said quietly. We stay with him until the end. He will not die alone. Far across the Empire, on a small research outpost orbiting a gas giant, Dr. Maya Robinson stared at her computer screens with growing disbelief. She was human, one of only 50 humans currently stationed within Krynian space as part of the Galactic Research Exchange Program. Maya was 32 years old, with dark skin, close-cropped black hair, and eyes that rarely missed details others overlooked. She specialized in xenobiology, studying how different alien species adapted to various environments. Her work was important but unglamorous. She analyzed soil samples, studied bacterial cultures, wrote reports that few people read. She was not supposed to be looking at classified Krynian medical data. But 3 days ago, Maya had noticed something odd in the atmospheric readings from Krynar Prime. Unusual energy signatures that matched nothing in her database. Curious, she had dug deeper, accessing public scientific journals, cross-referencing with her own research. That led her to medical studies about the void sickness. Those studies included anonymized patient data, but the patterns they showed had caught her attention immediately. Maya had spent 2 years on Mars studying a radiation sickness outbreak among terraforming crews. The cellular breakdown patterns looked eerily similar to what she was seeing in the Krynian data. Different biology, different presentation, but the underlying mechanism seemed familiar. She pulled up the latest news broadcasts. The entire Empire was talking about Prince Theron's condition, the young prince who had captured the hearts of billions with his passion for exploration and reform. Maya watched footage of the prince from 6 months ago, healthy and vibrant, speaking at a university about the importance of reaching beyond known boundaries. Now he was dying from a disease that had killed thousands over the centuries. The broadcast showed medical scans, released to the public as part of the Krynian tradition of transparency in matters of death. Maya studied those scans with intense focus. The cellular degradation, the quantum-level disruption, the way the disease spread through the body in predictable patterns. She had seen something like this before, not identical but similar enough to make her pulse quicken. This is crazy, she muttered to herself, running another analysis. This is absolutely insane. But the data did not lie. The void sickness showed all the hallmarks of chronic exposure to a specific type of cosmic radiation. Not the kind that came from stars or space travel. Something else. Something the Krynians, with all their advanced technology, might have overlooked because they were looking for a biological pathogen instead of an environmental factor. Maya's hands trembled slightly as she composed a message. She knew what she was about to do was dangerous. She was a low-level researcher with no authority to contact the Imperial Court. She would almost certainly be ignored, possibly reprimanded, maybe even expelled from the exchange program. But she could not stay silent. Not when a young man was dying from something that might be preventable. She addressed the message to the Imperial Medical Council, explaining her theory in clear, simple terms. She attached her data, her analysis, her comparison with the Mars outbreak. She emphasized that she could be completely wrong, but urged them to at least consider the possibility. Then, before she could second-guess herself, she sent it. The response came within 2 hours. A terse, formal rejection from the Medical Council's administrative office. They thanked her for her interest, but assured her that the Empire's finest minds had examined every possible cause. The void sickness was well understood. Her theory, while creative, was based on insufficient understanding of Krynian biology. She should focus on her assigned research duties. Maya stared at the rejection message for a long time. She should let it go. She had tried. She had done her duty. No one could fault her for that. But she kept thinking about the prince, about his mother watching him die, about all the other victims over the centuries. She thought about the Mars outbreak, about how close they had come to giving up before someone tried one more thing. She made a decision that would change everything. She opened a new message, this time addressed directly to Empress Zalara herself. It was wildly inappropriate. It violated multiple protocols. It could end her career. She wrote it anyway. Your Majesty, my name is Dr. Maya Robinson. I am a human researcher currently stationed in your empire. I know I have no right to contact you directly, especially at such a terrible time. I know my theory has already been rejected by your medical council. but I am begging you to listen. I believe the void sickness may not be what everyone thinks it is. I believe it might be treatable. I could be wrong. I probably am wrong. But what if I am not? What if there is even the smallest chance? Your son is dying. I understand that. I understand you have already tried everything. But please let me show you what I have found. Let me try, because that is what humans do. We try even when everyone says it is hopeless. We fight even when the odds are impossible. We hope even when hope seems foolish. Please let me try. She sent the message before she could change her mind. Then she sat back and waited, knowing she had just committed professional suicide but unable to regret it. 12 hours. That was how long the prince had left. 12 hours for a miracle that probably would not come. But Maya Robinson, daughter of Earth, believer in impossible things, would spend every one of those hours fighting, because giving up was not in her nature. It never had been. The miracle of defiance. The response from the Imperial Palace came 6 hours later. Maya had not slept, running simulation after simulation, refining her theory, preparing for a rejection that would finalize everything. When her communication console chimed with an incoming message marked with the Imperial seal, her heart nearly stopped. She opened it with shaking hands. Dr. Robinson, you are granted emergency clearance to enter the Imperial Palace Medical Wing. A shuttle will arrive at your station within the hour. Bring all your research. Bring your equipment. Bring your hope. We have nothing left to lose. Signed, Empress Solara. Maya stared at the message, reading it 3 times to make sure she understood correctly. The Empress herself had responded. The Empress was giving her a chance. She jumped into action, grabbing her portable lab equipment, downloading all her research onto secure drives, throwing together a travel bag. Her hands moved on autopilot while her mind raced through possibilities and problems. She had perhaps 6 hours before the prince died. 6 hours to prove a theory that went against 800 years of accepted medical knowledge. The odds were astronomical. The chance of failure was almost certain. But almost was not the same as absolutely. The Imperial shuttle arrived precisely on time, a sleek vessel that made her research station's transport pods look like antique toys. 2 Crinian guards escorted her aboard without a word, their expressions unreadable. The journey to Krynar Prime took 40 minutes at speeds that pressed Maya back into her seat, despite the inertial dampeners. She spent the time reviewing her data one more time, looking for flaws in her reasoning, trying to anticipate objections. The shuttle descended through atmosphere thick with storm clouds. Lightning flashed around them as if the planet itself reflected the Empire's anguish. They landed on a private platform high in the palace complex where more guards waited. Dr. Robinson, one of them said, his voice deep and formal. The Empress is waiting. Follow us quickly. They moved through corridors of stunning beauty, walls of living crystal that pulsed with soft light, floors that seemed to float above nothing, art from 1,000 worlds. Maya noticed none of it. Her focus was entirely on what lay ahead. They reached the medical wing where High Chancellor Varix met her at the entrance. His forearms were crossed in a gesture that looked defensive. His large eyes studied her with obvious skepticism. Dr. Robinson, he said coldly, I want to be clear about something. The Empress has granted you this audience against the strong advice of her council. We believe this is false hope at a time when Her Majesty needs to focus on saying goodbye to her son. If you are wrong, if you waste precious time, you will answer for it. Maya met his gaze steadily. I understand, Chancellor. I would not be here if I was not confident in my analysis. I am not here to give false hope. I am here because I believe I can help. We shall see, Varix replied. He gestured for her to follow. The medical chamber took Maya's breath away. It was enormous, filled with technology she could barely comprehend. In the center, surrounded by monitoring equipment and containment fields, was Prince Theron. Even from across the room, Maya could see how bad he was. The black veins had spread across nearly all his visible skin. His breathing was barely perceptible. Beside the containment field stood Empress Solara, still in the same position Maya had seen in news broadcasts, one hand pressed against the barrier. The Empress turned as Maya approached. Up close, she was even more impressive than on screen. Tall, regal, radiating authority despite her obvious grief. But her eyes held something Maya had not expected to see. Hope. Desperate, fragile, but genuine hope. Dr. Robinson, Solara said. Her voice was hoarse from hours of crying, but still carried command. You have 90 minutes. My son has 90 minutes. Show me why I should believe a human I have never met over 8 centuries of our own medical science. Maya bowed, a gesture of respect she had learned during her time in Crinian space. Then she straightened and spoke with confidence she did not entirely feel. Your Majesty, with respect, I think your medical science has been looking in the wrong direction. You have been treating the void sickness as a disease, a biological pathogen. But what if it is not? What if it is an environmental poisoning? Chief Physician Morvac stepped forward, his expression doubtful. We have considered environmental factors extensively. The victims show no common exposure patterns. They come from different worlds, different social classes, different lifestyles. There is no consistent environmental link. That is because you have been looking at obvious environments, Maya replied. She activated her portable display showing her data. But what about a specific type of cosmic radiation? Something that does not come from normal stellar activity. Something that might have been introduced into your empire 800 years ago. She pulled up historical records. The first recorded case of void sickness appeared 803 years ago. What else happened around that time? Your empire discovered and began mining a new element from deep space. Coraxium. It revolutionized your energy systems. It is used in nearly every major piece of technology across your empire. Morvax frowned. Coraxium is thoroughly tested. It is completely safe. We have used it for centuries without problems. Maya nodded. Safe for the vast majority of Crinians. But what if a small percentage of your population has a genetic variation that makes them sensitive to the specific radiation coraxium emits? Not enough to show up in standard exposure tests. Not enough to cause immediate harm. But chronic exposure over years, slowly building up in the body at a quantum level, until it reaches a critical threshold and the cellular breakdown begins. She showed more data, comparing the progression of void sickness with known radiation poisoning patterns from human medical history. The similarities were striking once you knew what to look for. On Mars, we had a similar situation. Terraforming equipment was emitting a type of radiation our standard tests did not catch. It made people sick with symptoms that looked like genetic disease. We only figured it out when someone thought to use old diagnostic equipment that measured different radiation spectrums. The room was silent. Zalara stared at the data, her expression shifting from skepticism to something that might have been wonder. If you are correct, she said slowly, then my son is dying from poison, not disease. From something we built ourselves. Her voice cracked. We did this to him. Maya felt a surge of compassion. Your Majesty, you could not have known. But if I am right, we can fix this. Radiation poisoning is treatable if we catch it in time. We need to shield him from further exposure, flush the accumulated radiation from his system and support his body while it heals. It will not be easy. It will not be quick. But it is possible. Varric spoke up, his voice sharp. And if you are wrong? If we follow your theory and fail, the prince dies anyway, but having suffered through experimental treatments in his final hours. Maya turned to face him. Chancellor, with respect, the prince is dying right now. Your traditional approaches have failed. What do you have to lose by trying something different? If I am wrong, the outcome is the same as doing nothing. But if I am right, you save not just Prince Theron, but every future victim of this condition. Empress Zalara looked at her son, then at Maya, then back at her son. The weight of the decision showed in every line of her face. She was a mother watching her child die. She was an empress responsible for the well-being of billions. She was a person being asked to trust a stranger with a wild theory, against all conventional wisdom. Finally, she spoke. Dr. Robinson, I am going to trust you. Not because your theory is proven, not because you have credentials that match our physicians, but because you are the only person in this empire who looked at my son and saw a solution instead of an ending. Do what you must. Save him. Maya felt the weight of that trust settle on her shoulders. She turned to Morvax. I need your help. I cannot do this alone. I do not know enough about Crinian biology, but if we work together, combining your knowledge with my theory, we might have a chance. Morvax looked at the Empress, who nodded. The old physician sighed, then stepped forward. Very well, Dr. Robinson, tell me what you need. The next hour was chaos. Maya and Morvax worked together, designing a treatment protocol that had never been attempted before. They had to shield Theron from all coraxium radiation first. That meant moving him to a chamber lined with lead and other blocking materials. It meant removing every piece of standard technology from his vicinity. The palace staff scrambled to retrofit an entire room in record time. Meanwhile, Maya synthesized a compound based on treatments used for radiation poisoning in humans, adjusted for Crinian biology with Morvax's guidance. It was crude, improvised, potentially dangerous, but it was their only shot. This could kill him, Morvax warned as they prepared the treatment. The compound is extremely aggressive. His system is already failing. The stress might be too much. Maya looked at Prince Theron through the observation window. He had perhaps 20 minutes left, maybe less. His vital signs were approaching critical levels. Doing nothing will definitely kill him, she said quietly. This way, at least he has a chance. They moved the prince to the shielded chamber. Zalara followed, refusing to leave her son's side. Maya and Morvax entered in protective gear, carrying the treatment. Maya's hands were steady as she loaded the compound into an injector adapted for Crinian physiology. This was it. The moment everything either worked or fell apart. She looked at the Empress. Your Majesty, once I administer this, there is no going back. Are you certain? Zalara placed one hand over her son's still form. I am certain. Do it. Maya injected the compound directly into Theron's primary circulatory system. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the monitors went crazy. Alarms blared. The prince's body convulsed. His vitals dropped dangerously low. He is crashing, Morvax shouted. Cardiac systems failing. Neural activity dropping. Maya watched the readouts, her heart pounding. This was expected. The compound was attacking the accumulated radiation, but the process was violent. The prince's body was a battlefield between poison and cure. Support his system, she ordered. Keep his organs functioning. His body needs time to fight. Morvax worked his equipment with practiced skill. Drugs flowed into the prince's system, supporting his heart, his lungs, his brain. Minutes crawled by. The alarms continued. Zalara stood frozen, watching her son die and possibly be reborn, unable to do anything but witness. Then slowly, impossibly, the readings began to stabilize. The black veins started to fade just slightly. The prince's breathing strengthened just a fraction. Neural activity increasing, Morvax said, disbelief in his voice. Cellular regeneration beginning. By the ancestors, it is working. Maya did not dare to hope yet. They were not out of danger. The next hours would be critical. But for the first time, the monitors showed improvement instead of decline. For the first time in 800 years, someone with void sickness was getting better instead of worse. Empress Zalara collapsed to her knees beside her son's bed, tears streaming down her face. But this time they were tears of hope, not grief. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you. 3 days later, Prince Theron opened his eyes. The black veins were gone. His silver skin glowed with health. He looked at his mother and smiled weakly. Mother, I had the strangest dream. Zalara embraced him carefully, laughing and crying at once. Across the empire, news of the miracle spread. The human who defied impossible odds. The theory that changed everything. The prince who came back from death itself. Maya stood in the palace gardens watching 3 suns set over the imperial city. Morvax joined her, his expression thoughtful. You saved him, Dr. Robinson. You saved them all. Every future victim. You have given us a cure. Maya shook her head. We saved him. Together. That is what happens when different species work together, share knowledge, trust each other. We find solutions that neither could reach alone. That evening, Empress Zalara made a historic announcement. Humanity would be forever honored as the bringers of hope. Joint human Crinian medical centers would be established across the galaxy. The barriers between species would fall, and in the center of the imperial city a monument would stand. A human and a Crinian working together, reaching toward the stars. Because sometimes miracles were not magic. They were simply what happened when someone refused to give up hope.